to the Proactive Community Services Community Pulse. I am Kenneth Brown. I'm the Director of Harm Reduction and Prevention for PCS. And this is Al Forbes from Al Forbes Consulting. So happy he's with us today. So first things first, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Al Forbes. I am the CEO of Al Forbes Consulting, and we started doing business back in 2003. And we currently provide organization development, staff development. We provide CEO mentoring, as well as holistic services, Reiki, tarot card readings, sound therapy. So we really work from a holistic perspective of mind, body, and spirit, and to balance those three. So that's what we're about with the holistic piece of services.
And so I love the way you say that, so effortless. Like, so we're talking about mind, body, spirit, soul, physical, mental, emotional health.
Yes.
You kind of do it all over at Al Forbes Consulting.
Exactly.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm excited about this, if you can't tell by the smile on my face, because I've had the opportunity to meet and talk to Mr. Forbes for quite a while now. Commitment to community, the underserved populations, marginalized populations. What gives you the drive and focus to help people who might not be able to help themselves?
I think that it comes from a place of we typically can do better when we know better. And I correct that from people used to say you do better when you know better, but many of us know better but we don't do better. I believe that, you know, with the right encouragement, with the right sense of self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, when we know better, we do better. And one of the things I work to do is to lift people up and to elevate them. So, for example, I work with as a coach, and one of my clients has been diagnosed with a mental illness. And what I told her is that it's interesting because mental professionals, they diagnose you when you're at your worst.
Right.
So when you're in a state of total depression, they come along, they'll say, well, you're schizophrenic or you're bipolar and all these other things, but you're at your lowest that you've ever been. Mm-hmm. And so what I said to her, they don't come back and re-diagnose you to say, oh, you're better now. Right. And she said the other day, she asked her provider, when do I get better? And the person had no answer. Mm-hmm. Because the purpose of the psychiatrist and psychologist is to diagnose you, not to heal you, not to really help you to elevate and to build your self-esteem.
Right.
So people become their diagnosis. Wow. So you become schizophrenic. So you are schizophrenic. You're not having an episode of schizophrenia. You are schizophrenic.
You become what you identify with based on somebody else's assessment of who you are. Wow.
And I said to her also that, you know, the thing about perceptions is that other people's perceptions only matter when you receive it. What someone else is perceiving about you is only matters when you receive it. So when someone gives you a diagnosis, when you receive it, all of a sudden that fills your aura, fills your being with, I'm schizophrenic, I'm bipolar, I'm XYZ, as opposed to I had a moment of being bipolar or being schizophrenic or being manic, but that's not who I am. It's not defining my life. And you understand this from the point of being HIV positive. When you talk to people who are positive, they're not HIV. They have HIV.
Absolutely. And I think that what you brought up, within that, I got a lot of self-awareness, knowing who you are, and being empowered enough to define who you are and how you are in society. Exactly. So thank you for that. That was powerful for me. I'm always excited to talk to you because, like I said, you give perspective, and it just kind of falls off you effortlessly. What was the one thing, if you can point back, what was the one thing that made you say, hey, it's 20 years ago, I'm asking you to go back in your memory, 20 years ago, I'm going to take a risk, I'm going to take a chance and create a consulting team, because there's not a lot of firms that look like what you look like. There's not a lot of consulting people who serve the population and are so unapologetically themselves. What gave you the motivation, and what can you point to that made you want to start this thing?
That's an interesting story, Kenny. Back in the day, I was working at Gay Men of African Descent in New York City, and I was the assistant director to my boss, Maurice Franklin, now Dr. Maurice Franklin. Okay. And so when he left, I took over the reign and stepped into the directorship. And I said to my ED at the time, I don't want to separate the youth program from the adult program. I want to get in and help as many people as I can. And so they had gone off to sign another CDC contract, and they called me in the midst of it and said, oh, when we come back, we're going to separate the programs. Oh, wow. And I'm like, okay, I've already told you what I do want to do, what I don't want to do. So I sat down and wrote my resignation letter right away because I said, something's not right here. And I went to another company down in D.C., got the job right away, went to D.C., became a director down there. And I had similar situations where there was a disconnect between myself and the executive director. And so after being down there for 3 months, we parted ways. And I said, okay, either I'm crazy and can't work for people, or my bosses are crazy and I can't work for them.
Okay.
And I always tell people, bet on yourself. Bet on yourself, because you know who you are. And if you're gonna take a risk, take the risk on yourself. So I just stepped out, and it's been really just a wonderful journey for 20 years. It's 20 years back on June 10th. And the one thing I remember, I did the classic Tina Turner, when Tina was divorcing Ike, and she said, I just want my name.
Yeah.
So when I left from GMAT, the only thing I said was, I want to take my phone number.
Yeah.
Because what became clear to me is that many people leave a company, and when you call, they say, we don't know where that person is. And I said, the one thing people know about me right now is how to get my phone number, how to call me on my phone number. So 646-729-5136 was my number back in 2000. 20 years later, it's still my number. 23 years later, it's still my number.
Wow.
So that was my little Tina Turner move. But it paid off because people were able to reach out to me and give me gigs that tied me over until I was really able to establish myself in a more permanent way.
Yeah, and I think that's a really powerful statement. Being frustrated enough, or being in a situation enough to say, you know what, I'm going to bet on myself. And it's really not a gamble when you have the gifts and skills that somebody like Al has to bless our community. And so you're into consulting, successful at doing this, one of the best coaches, mentors, teachers that we have, especially in this area. And you meet Eula Burge and you start to work with Proactive Community Services. What was that like?
That was another interesting story that I share with people. I was doing a workshop at one of the national conferences, and it was on organizational development. And so after the workshop, I like to stay around and meet people. And so Ms. Burge came walking up, and she said, I'd like to get you to do my executive coaching. And she said, what do you charge? I said, well, $50 an hour. She said, well, can I get 1 hour a month?
So I want to pause really quick. So $50 an hour. I will do out on a limb and say yesterday's price is not today's price. He got his phone number out there earlier. Don't call and expect the $50. That was years ago. Force Consulting, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, we've increased the price. And yes.
Okay, please continue.
But it's always based on what the person can afford. Okay. So I said to Ms. Eula, I said, at first I'm like, oh, I was excited because I'm like, oh, I got a customer here. There you go. She said, 1 hour a month. I'm like, okay. And so we started working together, and I immediately fell in love with Miss Eula. In the first month of servicing, I think she called me like 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And so I said to her, you know, Miss Eula, I have 300 minutes a month. And I've gone over the 300 minutes a month because you called me a number of times. And in her own way, Miss Eula is. She said, okay, I'll pay the bill. I said, no, I'm telling you because you helped me to realize if I'm going to take this seriously, I need more than 300 minutes. Because 300 minutes is 5 1-hour calls.
Right.
And you're not going to do too much business on 5 1-hour calls. Like that's when I got my unlimited line. And since then, it's been a wonderful journey with Miss Eula. She introduced me to another person who introduced me to another person. And so I now have more clients in the area because of that, saying yes to 1 hour a month. And some people would have said no, and I would have missed my blessing. But when you're on your path, the one thing that Celestine Prophecy talks about is when you're on your path, the universe conspires to support you and to get you to your goal and your destination. But if you don't know your path, you get lost.
And so that's the self-awareness piece. I'm going to keep going back to it. When you bet on yourself, or you say no to things that are tearing you down, and you say yes to your path, look at what can happen. Now, if you look at Al Force Consulting, it is one of the largest consulting firms, most knowledgeable basis, and somebody who wants to help you help yourself to help other people. And so we talked about on our last episode about Miss Eula Burge. She is phenomenal. Hopefully we'll get her on this table soon and at this table to talk about the story of PCS a little bit more in depth. What are you working on currently now with PCS and Eula Burge? Can you give us a little insight on that? So a little piece of it, because I know there's a lot.
There's a lot. PCS right now is blowing up. PCS started off doing HIV work, and PCS now is doing harm reduction, housing. PCS has a workforce development piece. We just recently put in for our mobile medical services. And so PCS right now is looking at where are the problems in the South suburban communities? Where are Black people being treated less than? Where are the wealth gaps? And that's what Ms. Eula has just started talking more about, that really it's not about equity, it's about the wealth gaps. Because you can't go to school because you don't have the money. You can't move to certain neighborhoods because you don't have the money or because of the color of your skin. But it really comes down to wealth gaps. And until we can close the wealth gaps, the equity won't be the answer. For me, I really believe that we need to look and look at how do we create people who are able to be independent, who are able to live their life authentically, and that's when you get past equity to how I'm living my life. One thing I say for Forbes Consulting is that we are spiritual beings having a human moment.
Can you wait? I'm gonna have a preacher moment. Can you say that one more time to our audience? Please say that.
We are spiritual beings having a human moment. And what happens in that human moment is that sometimes we get weighted down and we get earthbound. So literally earthbound. And our whole purpose on this planet is to elevate ourselves so we can reconnect with the divine spirit. But when we're earthbound because of money, because of our relationships, because of our needs and wants, we can't elevate. So I really encourage people as I work with them to elevate yourself and not get caught up in all the nonsense that we can get caught up in. What does this person think about me? How am I trying to appease this person? And to really be focused on being authentically who you are.
So having a consulting agency, decades in the business, right? Getting with somebody like Eula Burge and PCS. Where do you see the future of PCS and Forbes Consulting? What does that look like moving forward?
Well, Eula has taken, as CEO of this organization, she's taken she started the organization. Right. She didn't inherit it. She didn't get it from somebody else. She started it. And so she started small. And
let me get this straight.
Yes.
You started small. Forbes Consulting blew up, East Coast, Midwest. PCS started small. It's blowing up. Is that a coincidence?
No, because I think when you work with intention, I tell people all the time, it's about the intention.
Yes.
When you work with intention, you know where you're going. One thing that Stephen Covey says is start the end in mind. And therefore you always know where you're going.
Okay.
And you have you can have like if I know I want to go to Boston and I see myself going past St. Louis and moving that direction, I'm not going towards Boston.
There you go.
But if you don't know where you're going, anywhere you end up is okay. So I think with Miss Eula, she knew what she wanted to do.
Okay.
And so what I've been able to do is to sit down with her and talk about, okay, you're southern suburbs right now, south suburbs. Well, now we're looking at southwest suburbs. Next we're looking at the west. And I said, really, we want to own that you're in Cook County. So now you're no longer just in one small area. You can take what's worked in the south suburbs and now use it to work with all of Cook County. And then once you do that, you can go to Illinois.
And I can tell you he's saying this from an experience standpoint. Before the camera started rolling, we were having a conversation. And I told him on the way over here, I said, I always try to get knowledge from you and then soak up some of the game. One of the things that you said that was powerful before we started was, once I started to move around and travel, I realized that the plight of my people was happening everywhere.
Yes.
And so you're saying PCS can take this blueprint, take this model, and apply it in places where things are happening to the same type of people and see that same success.
Exactly.
Proven point right here. So if I was an independent person and I want to start my own agency, how would I contact you for consulting help? I
am available. We just built the website out this past year. It's alforbesconsulting.com, and easy enough to remember that. And then Al at alforbesconsulting.com. Very simple to remember. And I provide people a half hour of consulting free. The first half hour is free. And oftentimes the first half hour will go longer because I'm not about the money. I'm really about how can I assist you on your journey. And so one of my taglines is all about the journey.
Wow. You heard it here, alforbesconsulting.com. Not about the money, it's about the mission. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to me and to talk to us. I know you all will be contacting him. Please reach out and take care.
Peace and blessings.
Thank you.